Hello, everyone. Welcome to my show. Autumn is here. I'm Francine Crawford. I am here today with Jennifer Jones, and she's going to share some stories about her dad with us. So we like to welcome her to our show. Welcome, Jennifer.
Thank you.
How are you today?
I'm moving in the right direction.
Okay. That's good. Before we get into it, just tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I am married to a wonderful man named Sean Jones. I am a mother of 3 daughters. I have a 24-year-old, a 23-year-old, and a 10-year-old. I live in California, but I'm from the East Coast. I'm from a little town called Horsham outside of Philadelphia, and I am a business owner. So I own a luxury medicinal small business called Cocoa Buttery, where we specialize in skincare for those that have eczema, dry skin, sensitive skin, and chemo skin.
Okay. Wow. Well, when Autumn is here, we talk about preparing for our parents as they get older, if they get ill, things that we might need to put in place, or just things that we may not know about. And we want to share your story. First, my condolences. You lost your dad pretty recently, around Thanksgiving, I believe.
Yes, it was 6 weeks ago.
Oh, wow. Okay. Well, we wanted to talk about some of that, but we also wanted to talk about prior to that. Can you just tell me a little bit about your dad?
Absolutely. He was a dynamic individual. He was one of those one-of-one kind of men. Mm-hmm. Born in a small town in Virginia called Pocahontas, which is in Peters, like a little island off of Petersburg. Raised between Virginia and New York, and then moved to Philadelphia, Ivy League education at University of Pennsylvania. Met my mother. They got married in 1972 and stayed married for 50 years. Have 2 children, myself and my brother. I'm the firstborn. I'm the child of lovers. And I have a brother that's 15 months younger than me that arguably was my brother and my father were best friends. He had a small group of friends and a large group of acquaintances. He worked for the city of Philadelphia, I believe 30 years, writing grants and programs for the housing authority and really making his mark in community service and just building a great facility in different neighborhoods to help children. He's had some programs that will live on in his legacy, smoke-free housing, and I could go on and on and on, but just a phenomenal man. He had a quest for education and learning. He spent his entire life living out loud with his love. So he was someone who not only said, "I love you," but he showed it. And he also took friendship to a level of understanding that if I call you friend, you call me friend, and you need an extra set of hands, I am that. And then the same thing with his family. If you need something, you needed someone reliable to help you with that something. If he had the ability to do it, you don't have to ask. You just had to say that you needed it. And then his response was when. But yeah, very funny man, very cerebral sense of humor, and definitely spent every single moment, every breath in his body preaching the word of God and living everything that he said.
Oh, amazing. He sounds like an amazing man.
Yeah.
So, any loss is a big loss, and it hurts, and we go through different things. So can you tell us a little bit about, was he ill for a long period of time?
Yes and no. So he had battled cancer on and off since 2008, and, would have cancer and then be in remission. So he was in remission for a long time. And then in November of 2019, he got diagnosed again that his follicular lymphoma had come back, and it was growing really, really slowly. He had like one lymph node that had some activity in it. And so because the pandemic had come around, his oncologist was like, let's just wait, let's just watch, because they didn't know enough about how the chemo would affect him and COVID and those kind of things. And so since it was not a really fast growing cancer, they just kind of waited. Fast forward to, and he was also waiting for a trial because he qualified for this CAR T trial. When June of 2022 rolled around, he went into the trial in June. He had some extremely harsh treatments, some adverse reactions, and November he passed away.
Oh, okay. So he opted to take the trial because did the doctors say that would be better for him, or they said it would be better for him?
He said it was a cure.
They said it was a cure.
They said it was a cure.
Oh my goodness. Okay. So in that period of time when it came back, the cancer came back, was he being taken care by in a home, or did he go to a facility?
Still active.
He was still active.
He was in the process of moving across the country. So my brother and I convinced our parents to move to California. They were the only ones on the East Coast. All the children are here, grandchildren. There's one grandchild and one great grandchild on the East Coast, but the rest of the family's on the West Coast. So after not being able to see each other for 18 months over the pandemic, we decided like, that's just not what we do as a family. Let's move you guys out here. So my dad started to build my mother a home in Central California. So he was in the process of moving. He was fine.
He was about to relocate.
Yes. So
where was he? Where was he first?
He was in Philadelphia, in the suburbs of Philadelphia.
Okay. So he was about to move down there,
California. And so he was still strong enough to, scale down the home they were currently living in and take all the donations and get rid of all the trash and carry all those things and all those items and flying back and forth and picking out cabinets and countertops. And he was fine.
Okay. And then
strong.
He was strong until he took the trial. He went through the trial.
Yes.
And when he went through the trial, it weakened him.
He lost 70 pounds. He was unable to eat and keep anything down. And, any of those chemo treatments, any variation of them, they cause extreme nausea. And so that the treatment took his life, not the cancer.
So you weren't expecting this. So were there things in order in case something should happen? Did you have your POA, or did you have a healthcare proxy or anything like that?
We did have a healthcare proxy. We weren't expecting that to happen, not at all. So let me say this: in my family, people live, even having had cancer, living until their late 80s, early 90s. So no, we weren't expecting that. The things that were in order where some of the finances were in order, where my mother was going to be in the event of him passing, that she's right here with her children. The properties that had to be put in a power of attorney and in a trust had been in motion. It hadn't been solidified yet. So we had started the activity of having the things put in trust. We had all of the marching orders, if you will, of what his wishes were in order and agreed upon. But the actual document hadn't been signed because he ended up coding. And then the medications that they put him on, because he was on those, it didn't qualify as him having sound mind to sign something, even though it had already been discussed when he had sound mind. So it had to be redone. In hindsight, we should have done it before he even started the first treatment. And although we try not to live our life in an if, I think the net is you're going to die. It's not an if, it's a when and how. And we hadn't really expected it to go that quickly. We thought that time was on our side. And so it's some pieces of the puzzle in place, but not the entire puzzle.
Okay. So in that point, did you have everybody was on the same page? Your family support, you weren't alone in this, your mom, your brothers, everybody was on the same page to try to help out anyway.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, my brother took the lead on most things. Like he literally just stopped his entire life and then spent the last 6 months almost daily with my father. When he wasn't with my brother, for the most part, he was here in my home because my home is closest to the hospital. And so my family was coming up here and we just took turns. Caregiving is extremely draining. It's very expensive. It's to some degree inconvenient. And so we took turns, making the hospital runs, making the grocery store runs, trying to like find something he would eat and those kind of things, taking care of some of the business that needed to be taken care of. Because again, they had just moved here. So they still had to establish a home. So I think for the most part in my family, we divided and conquered, my husband, my sister-in-law. There's only 4 of us, right? So it's me and my brother, my sister-in-law and my husband, and then my mother and my father. And then of course we have children. But when it comes to like the core group of who's going to do what, it was us. And we really just leveraged our skill sets. Who's best at what? And that's what you go do.
Okay. But because you weren't, you didn't expect this, that you had to immediately decide, okay, you do this, you do that, whatever, it wasn't planned.
It was fast. It was at one point when they had come out here to sign their closing papers, and this is before he went for the CAR-T treatment. He just had this. He was breaking down. Like we knew something was seriously wrong with him, and we couldn't figure out what was wrong with him. And they needed to go back to Pennsylvania. And I just booked a one-way ticket to make sure that they got back to Pennsylvania okay. And so that meant, my husband had to jump in and take care of our 10-year-old. I have a 23-year-old that still lives in the house. And so she had to be the drop off pickup while my husband had to go to work and do all those kind of things. So it was really, sometimes there were like drop everything and go do something to help. And then who picks up those pieces? Same thing happening on the other side with my brother and his family. My brother just went to Pennsylvania for like 2 months once my dad got those treatments and we saw that it was an adverse reaction to them. He just stopped everything to go and do that, which meant the rest of his life had to have some pieces picked up and plugged in and put together and everyone jumping in to help. But I think overall, as a family, we came together. We didn't let it pull us apart. There were some tense moments, there are some emotions, and you have that denial that like, he's not going to die. Like, why are you so upset? Like, he's not going to die. He's just sick. There's some of those kind of things. But then you start to see like, wait a minute, we need to move faster on a couple of items.
Yeah. And it's a lot of pressure.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And I'm sure emotion and up and down. And I'm sure you're trying to, deal with that, but you're trying to also be strong for your mom, because I'm sure that that was a lot for her, For her, it was probably, and still is, the scariest thing she's ever experienced in her life. She's been with my dad since she was 18 years old. Oh.
She doesn't know life without him. Wow. She's never made a serious adult decision without him. So trying to make decisions for him that she can't weigh with him was extremely difficult for her. She was in denial that it was happening.
Wow.
She didn't want to face that would be happening. It's the love of her life. Like I have those parents that have that storybook love relationship. Like, hi, it's me again. Is it you again? And, so for her, sometimes it presented in anger and trying to gain control of something because she was kind of in control of nothing, like life was taking control. And she had a hard time facing that. Like, she's used to him being so strong, and seeing him weak was devastating to her.
So when he passed in the hospital. Did you bring him home?
We brought him home.
You brought him home. You brought him home to pass, and he was not alone. He had family around him.
All of us.
He had all of you around him.
Yes, okay. It was. I mean, where you can find beauty in those type of situations, we found it. He had a procedure that they botched, and probably 10 or 12 doctors came into a room to speak to us, to tell us like, hey, this is it. And it was a holiday weekend. So they're telling us this the Wednesday before Thanksgiving, that he's got renal failure and fluid around his lungs and fluid on his heart. And, they got him hooked up to all these machines. He had already said he had had enough and that it was done. And, for us, we're like, hang in there. You're still strong. You can do it. But when we removed ourselves from the selfish part to say, like, he's suffering, and he said he's ready to go, and he said he wanted to go into hospice. So we quickly had a meeting with the staff to say, we need to get this done immediately. And they're like, oh, well, it's Thanksgiving tomorrow and it's a holiday and it's a this and a that. I don't care about your holiday.
Right.
We aren't going to be celebrating. No one's cooking dinner tomorrow.
Right.
Right. We get him home. So we had a pretty direct conversation with the team, and I gave them some marching orders of who needed to do what, when, and how, so that we could get him home the next day, which we did. And so Thanksgiving Day, he was at the house, and Friday, his best friends were flying in. And so he was, on Thursday, he was super active. He was still talking. He was still doing his bed exercises. He was very engaged, drinking as much as he could, trying to eat, maybe 2 or 3 sips of soup every couple of hours or something. But he was engaged with us. And then he said, I'm going to die tomorrow. And we're like, no, you're not, hang in there. But on Friday, his friends were there, and his best friend came in, and he had this playlist that was like 1972 to like 1994 soul and R&B. And we're in California, so windows are open, sun is shining, breeze is coming through. There's, the children and grandchildren, and so there's laughter, and there's love, and there's light, and there's music, and there's food. And we didn't cook, we ordered, but there was a very nice environment. And so he was surrounded by all of that when he took his last breath. He had the opportunity to say goodbye to us. He spoke all the way up until 2 hours before he passed away. And it really is befitting of the man he was. He wasn't alone. He wasn't in a hospital. He wasn't hooked up to machines. He didn't have somebody taking his blood every couple of hours. He was home. He was in his house that he built from the ground up for and with his wife. And he was surrounded by people who he says, I love you to. And so in the beauty of taking your last breath, he took it with the people who he says, I love you to.
Amazing. He seems like an amazing man, and to go through something so tragic like that, but to end where he was filled with love all around him, and you're able to, have him have even other people around that would, that he hasn't spoken to, in his favorite music and things like that. So that's beautiful. How are you now? How is the process now? Sometimes when someone dies, we have other things that we didn't think about, or now it's business that we have to deal with that, we don't know about. And now we have to figure it out because, he might have been the person that took care of stuff. And, so there's other things that happens after someone passes away. So how are you now with that?
So how am I? I'm somewhere between O and K. I'm trying to push those together. I'm someone who processes emotions very well. So I'm allowing myself to feel all the feels. And when it comes to the business of death, I wish that I was in a position to change that, because the minutia you have to go through, taking someone's name off of something, finalizing things. I mean, fortunately, my father didn't have debt, so we don't have to deal with that. But there's some other things that just drum up emotions that you're like, are you serious right now? We have some properties in the family that have to be taken care of, and those are things that he used to take care of. So just peeling back that onion is a lot. the things that he used to do for my mother, and, trying to just step in and help her learn those things, because we can't do them for her. I could do it for her, but then it still has her in a situation where she's unable to move forward with responsibility and ownership. And then that also puts something else on my plate. So I think the approach of let's do it together and let me show you how has been a really good approach. And it's also giving her a feeling of I can do this, and giving her some empowerment. I think having conversations over and over and over again is difficult, and it drums up some emotions that you may not be ready for in a day. And the grief comes in the strangest ways. It's the little tiny things that will pull it to the surface. And sometimes it's as simple as, how are you going to do something? What are we going to do with cars? Mommy doesn't need 2 cars. What are you going to do with the cars? Do we give one away? Do we sell it? Do we keep it? So, and there's emotion attached to things, which I never really understood. Like I'm not a very materialistic person. I do like material things. I have some nice things, but I didn't realize how much emotion is attached to something like a pillowcase, like the last pillowcase that he slept on.
Wow. Wow. Well, I know that you have an IG Instagram, where you tell your story for your countdown for your birthday. And that was something that you did with your dad. It's really beautiful. And you're doing that by yourself. How do you feel going through that?
I cry every day. Oh. So for those that don't know, my father and I did a 30-day countdown, the 30 days before my birthday every year. And again, I'm the firstborn. So, if you are a parent, your firstborn is the one that kind of like changes your life. So we have a super close relationship. I am the standard issue daddy's girl. But on my 39th birthday, my dad randomly had called me on the 3rd of January. My birthday's February 3rd, and I'm turning 50 this February. So on my 39th birthday, he called. He was like, "Oh, hey, baby, it's 30 days before you turn 40. What's the wisdom of the decade?" And as I said in the beginning, he was a consummate student. He learned all the time. And he always would say, if you brought him anything, he'd say, what you learned from it and what you going to do about it. And so we had these lessons. So we went through this 10-year countdown of what I had learned in my 30s to apply it to my 40s. And then each year in my 40s, it was just a 30-day countdown of what you learned last year that you're going to apply next year. And when my January 3rd of my 49th rolled around, I realized I didn't have him to have this conversation with. And so I thought, you know what, I'm going to have it on Instagram, because I do believe that when I speak out loud, he can hear me. I do believe that he had said to me about 2 Thursdays before he passed away, he said, baby, matter can neither be created nor destroyed. It just changes form, and we're going to have to find a new way to communicate. And so as we're finding our ways to communicate, I know he can hear me. And it also is forcing me to pull some of the wisdom that he had given me out. And as I'm sharing this on IG, it's also on Facebook and TikTok, I started to just move to all the social medias. It's helping other people. It's helping other people who are grieving, because in that I am processing my grief, in that I am solidifying some things that are within me from my dad, but then also the life lessons I had learned along the way so that I don't repeat them in my 50s, because I'm going to be 50. I need to do some things differently. But even though it's a really sensitive thing for me, it makes me have to be vulnerable. I'm putting myself out there, and it's making me think about him. It makes me miss him, but it also is a really great exercise for me to do, because in my grieving process, it gives me a little piece of him that's still alive.
Oh, awesome. Awesome. Well, it's helping you, and it's helping other people.
Yes.
And that sounds like a really cool thing to do with your dad. So I'm glad you had those moments with him.
Thank you.
How is your mom now? Is she holding up?
She's stronger than you would expect, but she's having a tough go of it.
Mm-hmm.
She's having a tough time. Couples don't realize how much the other person does until they're not there to do it.
Mm.
Right? You might feel like, oh, I'm the one that's always cooking, always, but the dishes mysteriously disappear. The other person did the dishes. So she's never taken the trash out. Never, ever, ever. Either my dad did it or my brother. And once my brother moved out the house, it was just my dad. And the other night she was taking the trash out. It was pouring down raining. And the latch got stuck on the gate. It's just that melted her. But then she'll be like, all right, I did this and I did that. And look what I did with the curtains. And, and again, she's still trying to build a home. But now she's trying to build a home with what does she like? And she's still balancing it of, I wonder if Gigi would have liked this. That was my dad's name, or is my dad's name. I don't know how to say that yet. His nickname was G. And so she's still going back and forth with, like, would it honor him? Is this something he would like? She's never lived on her own ever in her life. She packed a bag on her wedding day. And after she got married, she went back to her mom's house, grabbed her bag, and then moved in with my dad. She's never lived alone. So that's something. We've got an alarm system put in our house. So she's like, she makes these really great strides and then hits something that knocks her all the way back.
One of the reason why I wanted to talk to you, because one, we've never talked to somebody who has recently lost someone they loved. And sometimes we want people to know that sometimes you just can't be prepared. Sometimes it's not going to come slowly. Sometimes they're not going to age to 80 and then start going down or things like that. So it's good to be able to know that it does happen. It can happen to anybody. And there are things that you should put in place or that maybe you want to, be aware of, and it's good to see that, you need your family's help. You can't do it alone.
No, you can't.
It's too much to do it alone. So I thank you for your story. I want to ask you one more question, if I may, and let me know. If you had one more day with him, if by whatever chance you could have one more day with him, how would you spend that day? What would that look like? How would that feel like? What would happen? What would take place in that day?
So glad I have tissues right here. If I had one more day, I would record him singing. I would take more pictures. I would get one more forehead kiss. I would hug him one more time. I would tell him how much I love him one more time. I would thank him one more time. I would read his favorite scripture to him one more time. I would ask him where I should look to see him. Because he knew stuff. It's weird, like when they're passing away, they know stuff. Mm-hmm. Like they know stuff. And I remember he said, I think his life was flashing before his eyes because he said, oh, it's a movie. You should see this. It's beautiful. And we're like, see what? He's like, all of this. You can't see this. Yeah. Wow. But I think I would, I definitely would get more video, get more pictures. I have a ton, but I would get more because right now, hearing his voice is what you miss. And being able to go back to a video of him talking, singing, telling a joke, that's what's carrying us through. And I would do it one more time. And I would get him to sign his, I would get him to sign the trust anyway.
Yeah, see, we don't know these things and it happens and you need to it's business with it also, you know what I mean? Yeah.
It is. If I may say just
Yeah.
this one, get the business together before someone gets sick. Get their wishes before they're faced with it, so that those are not the conversations you're having in their last days. Have the conversations while they're still alive. Like my mother right now, we're like, listen, we just went through this. I have her power of attorney papers right behind me, and her trust is being reestablished. And we're going to do it now so that when her day comes, because it's going to come, when her day comes, all I got to do is worry about, are you comfortable? Not, can you sign here?
Right.
That's it,
Right. Wow. So thank you so much for your story. I appreciate it.
Sorry about that.
No apologies. No apologies. I thank you for sharing it with us. It's very sensitive because it's new and because it's your dad and it's so close. But I thank you so much for being brave enough to come on and share with somebody. I pray that somebody will get information from this and will be more involved in their family's life, be more involved in their parents' life or grandparents, and just be able to come together and help out and just be able to, as a family should.
If I can double click on the help out, go to the doctor's appointments, talk to the doctors, ask the questions, Google the information, look up the words you don't understand, know what the test results mean, because it is practicing medicine. And sometimes you have to be the advocate for your loved one to say, no, we're not doing that. We're going to do this.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
That's what the help means.
Absolutely. So, but thank you so much. Thank you so much for sharing. I'm praying that you, grief is something that takes a while. Okay. So take your time through it, whatever comes to you, get it out, however, cry, sing out loud, whatever you have to do, continue your IGs, and just pray that, this will help you and help somebody else. You're reaching out to other people, and I appreciate that. So thank you for being on Autumn is Here. And I just wish you and your mom and your family the best.
Thank you, Francine.
All right. Good night.
Good night.